Everyone has a secret side to them, one they don't show to anyone else. Not to their friends, their lovers, or even their own flesh and blood. Hiding their true feelings behind a mask of smiles and bravado, and keeping their real selves a mystery. This is how civilization is able to maintain its thin veneer of peace and stability.
Created by Tatsuya Endo, Spy Family has become one of the most popular animes on Netflix and currently ranks, according to the My Anime list, in the top 10 greatest anime of all time, which is astounding considering that this premiered April 9th this year. The manga Volume 1 debuted July 4th, 2019, which is ironic that's Independence Day and he's a spy. That's interesting. I wonder if that was done with any intention, but it's cool to say the least. It actually debuted on Shonen Jump March 25th, 2019, and that's where it appeared as individual chapters, and then later it became serialized as a volume. It does state that the adventures of the Forger family take place in a 1960s inspired setting, so not necessarily that. Today we are talking about episodes 1 through 12, which I think is considered season 1, or at least the first half, of Spy Family. Agent Twilight, alias Loid Forger, I'm pretty sure. I don't think that's his true name. They kind of allude to the fact that no one knows his true name. So Loid Forger, I prefer to call him Twilight, is our protagonist.
Gives me less than 10 seconds for each one.
If I could name the two characters to birth him, it would be Light Yagami and Batman doing the fusion dance.
How great it feels to be me.
That is Agent Twilight. He is our cool-headed, calm, collected protagonist, at least most of the time.
Don't snap at me just because she loves you less. Stand down, Twilight. There was a mosquito.
It could be argued that the Forger family is an ensemble, and I do feel like it takes more of that tone, especially because certain episodes highlight each of the characters. But since we are introduced to Twilight first, and he, in my opinion, is given the most attention in the first half of the show, I'd consider him the protagonist. Anya, the second character in the ensemble we are introduced to, or if you might consider her the deuteragonist. I don't know if I even said that right, but you might consider her the second most important character. Anya is a telepath, and I'm pretty sure she can only read a person's current thoughts. She can't really pry out memories or certain info. You have to be thinking of it in the moment. And this leads to a lot of not only entertaining, but very useful and unique scenarios to the series. Our tritagonist, or some may consider her the third addition to the ensemble, Yor, completes the main cast of Spy Family. The deadliest assassin in the world, and yet somehow so humble, Yor is my favorite character so far in the series. Twilight makes an incredibly close second for sure. Camila is a minor character that I think stood out amongst the rest. She's just so incredibly unlikable. Like, to every degree, it's hard to believe that she's married. But it stands out in a very unique fashion, and I think she deserves to be mentioned for that. And of course, we have Franklin. Wow, I did not know his last name was Franklin until now. I'm kind of convinced he's a light-skinned black person. Let me know what you think in the comments. Maybe he's just like a slightly deeper toned Asian with coarse hair. I don't know. Let me know what you think. He stands out because he is just incredibly hilarious. His drag look is his best look, and tell me it's not. I'd also like to mention Yor's brother, Yuri. He seems like he's going to become a very central character later, but we'll see. I haven't read the mangas, but he definitely leaves a lasting impact, to say the least. The opening is incredible. I love the way they use the transition and colors. It's incredible. One of my favorite anime openings ever. I put it in a list on Instagram. It feels incredibly appropriate for Anya's section of the opening to be this incredibly childlike illustration. It's almost like she drew it, and then when it gets to her very serious parents, it becomes that art pop, that super colorful and dark shading that makes their silhouettes pop, and it's just so much fun. I think they did an incredible job with the opening to make it stand out from the rest of the crowd. They have competition, to say the least. And with those, shall we say, formalities out of the way, let's go ahead and get into episode 1, Operation Strix. Pretty quickly, we are informed about Twilight's overall goal, which is to keep peace between the East and the West, and that he is a spy that's a master of disguise.
Codename Twilight, a spy of the highest caliber.
Once we basically get his credentials, we find out that his next mission requires him to have a daughter. Well, a kid. It's actually a kid, but he ends up getting a daughter. Something I like to note quickly about Twilight's fashion sense is that his colors are typically masculine tones of like blues and greens, beiges and browns, and it makes him very stand out as a cool-headed person, much like he is. I'm glad that his style reflects that. Just like the more fun one of the couple, Yor's style is a bit more playful because she's not as serious on the surface as Twilight. So I'm gonna be honest, and I know I'm gonna get some like Anya lovers hate backlash for this, but Anya was being a bit insufferable.
Now you know I'm a spy, I'll have to make you disappear.
In hindsight, now that I understand the nature of her power, and we're going to talk about that more as we get closer to the episodes that go into a little more depth of her power. As I have understood that, looking back at these really annoying moments only makes sense, especially when you consider she is 6 in first grade. She's a literal baby. I was like, oh my gosh, like I know she's a telepath and that's how she got the code to get into his weapons, but I can't believe she actually played with them. But she loves spies, so it makes sense. And I feel like we're gonna understand why she loves them so much later, but we'll see what the series has to offer there. But I will admit, this did not make me feel good about the series at first, but I was so distracted by the plot and what was happening with Anya's kidnapping that I forgot Twilight is a master of disguise, and he swapped his face with the person who captured him, per se, because we were led to believe that. So this was very cleverly played, and that's when I was like, okay, the writing is super good. Let's see what the show has to offer. And everyone requested it so highly, so I had to see what it had to offer. Overall, I'd say this episode was an excellent introduction to the series. It set the tone quite well that it's going to be a slice of life, but extremely intense with the action.
Hell are these guys?
And have a touch of darkness to it with the underlying mystery. Just FYI, the last name Forger makes me think of forgery, so I don't know if that was on purpose, but it just seems fitting for a spy and the whole premise of what they're doing with the fake family.
If you leave me behind, I'm gonna cry.
She's been adopted and returned 4 times now.
Okay. Well, let's go home then.
Episode 2, Secure a Wife. I know animes usually have the 3-episode rule. I don't know if that's still a thing now, but I know that was a very huge thing once upon a time. I'd say by episode 2, if you love it, you'll love it from here on. This episode introduces Yor, the last member to complete the Forger family, and she's being harassed by her coworkers. Understanding that the era is 60s inspired helps me understand their mindset a little more, because that's where being a wife and all these things were what was put onto women, especially when they were young. It was seen as abnormal to not be in a heterosexual marriage at a certain age, and they really make this prevalent in the anime. And I just felt so bad for her regardless, because I was like, that's just really so disgusting. It's none of your business. Like, what if she just doesn't want to be with anyone? But because spies are being uncovered across the city.
Did you hear? There was some kind of office break-in. Apparently, someone came in and snatched up all the files with us ladies' personal info.
Or even just like regular civilians that are suspicious are being detained. It puts a whole nother level of perspective for these other women who are genuinely not assassins and spies and stuff. Yor and Twilight meet at, I think it's at a tailor shop. Yor needs to have one of her dresses fixed that she got cut during one of her assassin jobs.
Vice Minister Brennan from the auditing department, I presume. Terribly sorry for the interruption. But tell me, may I have the honor of taking your life this evening?
And she happens to sneak past Twilight. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but she just moves like an assassin. This intrigues Twilight because he either feels like he's slipping off of his game or that this woman is more than she appears. And it's so fascinating because she is more than she appears, but he's questioning it from two different sides, which happens a lot in this series. Eventually, they do decide by circumstance that they would help each other by posing as a couple.
I thought about asking him to play my boyfriend at the party, but that could easily end in bloodshed, so I'd better not.
I'm so lonely because I've got no mama.
It began to really intrigue me how Anya uses her telepathy to get what's in her favor, and this was when I started to get a bit of an understanding of the limitation of her powers. It started to seem like she could only hear a person's current thoughts and not things to a deeper level.
Whoops, I seem to have tripped on something.
Yor is bigger than me.
Hey, how are you? Hi, Did you touch her? Yeah, are you done?
These girls would have been killed long before the party. I'm the deadliest assassin in the world. So Yor is waiting to meet up with Twilight, and I was getting very upset for her because I was like, dude, I understand you're on a mission and you're doing spy stuff, it's important, but this is super important too. How are you not showing up? How are you this late? And then you show up drenched in blood. But their so sincere speech really brought me back into whatever this fake real relationship is. And the proposal,
even in sickness or in sadness, no matter what hardships we may face,
was one of the best proposals I've ever seen, ever. How appropriate for a spy to propose to an assassin with a grenade pin. Just wonderful writing.
Until my mission,
Until my killing, do us part.
Episode 3. Prepare for the interview. So this episode, the Forger family needs to bond to appear more like a upper class family, a standard upper class family. So they decide to try to do what a normal upper class families do and go to the park. And at the park, they witness a mugging. And this is when Yor really jumped into one of my favorite fictional characters ever, when she just jumped over that gate and was like, whoosh, ready to stop that villain. Villain, it's a mugger, but whatever. Yor loses the mugger in the crowd, unfortunately. Loid and Anya follow Yor, and during the commotion, Anya uses her powers to locate the mugger in the crowd who had changed clothes. But Loid's super incredible spy skills let him see that the walk pattern is the same as the mugger. So he was able to apprehend him with that knowledge. This also showed us that when Anya strains herself too hard, her nose bleeds, a very stereotypical trait seen in telepaths in all of media, or even just something that involves a lot of mental strain with your power, a nosebleed tends to occur. So I just like that is a trait that they are showing with her too. Overall, this was a fantastic episode, made me fall in love with Yor and the Forger family in general more. Everyone showed a specific trait that I loved. With Yor, it was her heroics. Anya, it was with the progression of seeing her telepathic powers. And with Loid, it was seeing another one of his spy skills by witnessing the signature walk pattern. So a great episode, so much fun. Episode 4, the prestigious school's interview. I know I've already gushed about Yor a lot in this video essay, and I'm gonna do it more. This clip is when Yor became my favorite character in the show, period. I'm sorry I didn't mention this. Agent Twilight is also the best spy in the world, just like Yor is the best assassin in the world. I think this is significant because he is so prepared for this interview that it literally makes one of the Grandmasters squeal with over and over, and I'm here for the elegance. They come across a boy in a sewer, and it's clearly a setup because you're not supposed to have sewage on your clothes for an interview. That's just highly inappropriate. Don't even show up. But being the prepared spy family that they are, he has a change of clothes and just yanks the boy out without caring about him getting dirty at all. They also get their clothes tattered a second time during the bull incident.
and prepare.
But they had a third change of clothes. Of course! So they were fine. The test the family face as they arrive on campus was so much fun, but that unfortunately leads to their sit-down interview where we meet, I think I might confidently say, the worst character in the first half of the show. And I don't mean poorly executed, I mean as in a disgusting... This director, I'm not going to give him a name, we're going to call him the evil director. The evil director asked Anya, because you know, Yor is her stepmother, and this is made apparent in their like fake family cover story. He asked Anya whose mother would she give a better rating to? Because she gave Loid and Yor 100% when asked this question earlier. So he asked if she had to choose a ranking higher for Yor or her biological mother, who would it be? One of the most evil things a person could ever do. And of course, Anya breaks down, naturally. Yor and Loid are ready to kill these people. Loid ends up freaking out in an elegant fashion, I might say, by punching a mosquito on the desk so hard, it breaks the desk in half and literally, I'm sure, scares the shit out of the director. And then they excuse themselves, stating that they don't want to be a part of a school with the interview process so heinous, and they leave with elegance. This leads to one of the Grandmasters punching the evil director, and it's just very satisfying to see him get punched in the face, but it was also unfortunate because we didn't know at the time what would become of the Grandmaster because of this. Another fantastic episode, and it really showed that the family is bonding in a very authentic way. He didn't need to lash out like that, and that may have actually hurt his chances, but he actually cares about this little girl. He cares about Yor. He kind of cares about this family. It's a little real at this point.
What will become of the mission now?
Or so it seems.
To our family's bright future.
Something fell!
That doesn't seem like a good omen.
Episode 5. Will they pass or fail? We pretty quickly find out that Anya failed and she's not on the list. However, our oh so elegant Grandmaster pulls the, I keep wanting to say the Yor family, pulls the Forger family to the side to let them know that Anya is the very first on the waiting list. And that's basically a guaranteed spot in any school if you're first on the waiting list, because there's always something that happens to like a few students, especially the larger the population is. But it is interesting considering how confident they were in that fact when there was only around 300 students that actually entered or made it in. And one of the most adorable moments from this episode was when Yor was deciding how she would get Anya in to assure her security. She's like, my little Anya's gonna get into the school. So she's fantasizing about killing the parent of a kid that made it in, so the kid would be too distressed to participate in school, and that would get Anya in, and it definitely would. They do this so much with their assassin and spy nature. It's so much fun to watch.
I need a position to open up for my Anya. So you have to die! Ow! No, no, no!
By the way, Anya has so many adorable moments that make her too cute to exist, and this is one of them.
Do I look cool?
Extremely.
So to secure the mission of world peace, Twilight needs to keep Anya in a state of excitement and happiness and motivation to go to her new private school that's actually going to be very difficult for her to be in. Twilight pulls out all of the soldier spy resources at his disposal to populate a castle and formulate a plan to make Anya the princess he needs to rescue. And it's so much fun watching the soldiers gush over him being like, because he's the best one, so everyone admires him. And this episode, in my opinion, has some of the most beautiful animations in the first part of the series so far, especially with Twilight like dodging the balls and just the action sequences. It was a lot of fun, super colorful, and just a joy to watch.
Look at him go!
I was so into the animations and Twilight just being a bad that I was like, look at him go! And literally 10 seconds later, one of the background characters said that about him. I was just like, yes, too perfect. I watched it dubbed, by the way, if you couldn't tell by this point.
Let them hit you a little, Loid!
Iconic. This OST was one of my favorites in the series. I'll try to roll some of it if I can.
I think it's so cool!
So, Agent Twilight gets to basically the final secret boss, Yor, a drunk Yor. And drunk Yor is mellow assassin Yor. Weaponless assassin Yor, I guess. And boy, is that a force to be reckoned with, as you can see. And Twilight really was struggling for a while until her heel broke in the most elegant fashion, and then she fell and passed out. Beautiful. Overall, one of my favorite episodes in the first part. A literal blast from start to end. Just so much excitement and fun and character development. 10 out of 10. I absolutely love this episode. Episode 6, the friendship scheme. We learned that in order for Twilight to complete his mission, Anya basically has to get into the elite's inner circle amongst her peers. And to do that, she must become a top ranking student in her school. And to achieve that, she needs to earn 8 stellar stars, and they're basically marks of incredible academic achievement, or if you like do something very special to contribute to overall humanity and stuff like that. So Yor and Anya go out to just get some supplies. Yor wants to start cooking and becoming a better wife, because even though she's just playing the role, she wants to do a good job at it. So they go and get some groceries, and Anya ends up getting kidnapped. Now, oh boy, did these kidnappers mess up when they took this one. And Yor literally, I don't know how she let them live. I don't know, maybe because that's not what an upstanding normal woman would do, apparently. So, you know, she lets them live, but not before striking fear into the deepest depths of their heart. 10 points for Yor.
I am that girl's mother, do you hear me? If you don't want to end up like that vegetable, I suggest you leave right now!
This leaves Anya, understandably, a little rattled, even though she's been kidnapped before to a much more serious extent. This leads to Yor teaching Anya a little self-defense. Now, on the flip side, Twilight organized Anya to be in the same class as his target so she could become close friends with him and hopefully just be invited over to their house as like a general guest. However, this boy bullies her relentlessly to the point where she uses her mother's technique and punches the boy. Clear across the room, which earns her, in elegance at least, a tonitrus bolt. First day of school, and she gets a tonitrus bolt. And this does not sit well with Agent Twilight, assuming there's no way to salvage the relationship and the mission would fail. Episode 7, the target's second son. Now, this episode just wasn't that personally interesting to me. I don't think it was a bad episode by any means, but it just wasn't that spectacular in any regard to me as well. I know that might be an unpopular opinion, but oh well. But I enjoyed it enough. Definitely not a bad episode. I had the least amount of notes. I think for this one, I only had 1 note, but I'll sum it up for you real quick. After Anya punches Damien, who definitely deserved it, especially with his 2 little weird henchmen goons, Loid is desperate for them to mend the fence so he can continue with his mission to basically infiltrate the second son's home. But Anya really doesn't want to make amends with this kid because he's kind of a brat. But interestingly enough, he's developing feelings for Anya, perhaps because she's one of the few people who's dared to defy him. Who knows? We'll come to see, I'm sure. Assuming that this plan isn't going to work anymore, he decides that Anya's best attempt at getting close to the inner circle is through her scholastics. So he decides to make her study a lot harder than a first grader probably should, and this discourages her, and it also starts triggering something that may have potentially scarred her in the past, but we're still uncertain of that as of season 1, or at least part 1. After a bit of reflecting from Yor, Loid decides that he was being a little too harsh on Anya and wants to allow her to watch the TV show that he said she couldn't until she was done studying. And when he opens the door, he finds out that she studied herself to sleep because she wants to make him proud. She's like whispering it in her sleep and stuff. And it's a really nice development moment for this whole group. So that's why I said this isn't a bad episode. It just wasn't the most interesting. It was just like a development one, a very slice of lifey, just a nice one to continue the ride.
No, Mama, you can't kill Papa.
Huh? What kind of dream is she having?
Episode 8, the counter-secret police cover operation. So something I actually forgot to mention in the last episode is Yor's brother Yuri finds out at the end of that episode that she is married and didn't tell him that she's been married for over a year, because the backstory that Twilight has made for the family is that they have been married for a year prior to them even meeting, just to give them, you know, a bit of time, just to give a better cover story. So this is basically Yuri's episode. We get to meet him separate from the cast, where he's interrogating, I forgot who and why, but he's interrogating someone quite brutally, and I'm pretty sure they didn't show the most brutal parts of that interrogation. But I think it's only so appropriate for him to have this sinister side, considering who his sister is, and that she is the top assassin in the world. Her job is to kill people. It seems like it might be in their blood, which might say more for their lineage and the history of where they come from later on if the show decides to go there. So Yuri decides to show up, announce, but with little time for them to prepare. Yor is just like, let me handle this for the most part. And as the best spy in the world, Loid feels comfortable handling the situation too. And it leads to a lot of fascinating scenarios. This is also one of the few episodes that Anya isn't very much present for. She just goes to sleep at the beginning and then that's it for her. Now, their dynamic as siblings is a little Jaime Cersei Lannister. It's a little that brother and sister from Yuri on Ice. It's a little uncomfortable at times. It seems like his love for her is a little more than sibling. Only sometimes it just seems like he's overprotective, and then he says some things that make you look twice like, what the f did you just say? It's fascinating, but it's also a lot of fun. And considering the way they grew up and they only had each other, I can see them becoming exceptionally close because of that factor. And the episode does do a good job of highlighting that. It also does a fantastic job of highlighting Twilight's deductive skills as a spy. I just noticed right now that whenever Loid is doing something spy related, I've been calling him Twilight instead of Loid, which I think is funny because that's something I do with superheroes too. When they're like doing something as a civilian, I'll refer to them as their civilian identity. And then when they're doing heroics, I'll call them their superhero name. So he's a superhero to me. I love Loid. But anyways, they did a fantastic job of highlighting his talent as a spy yet again. I'm sure we'll see many more examples with the series to come. But you notice that the questions he was being barraged with, aka interrogated by, were the same questions that the SSS used as their template. And that let him know that Yuri worked for the SSS. Loid and Yor reach for something and their hands touch and they fling them away because they're not actually a couple, and it made them a bit uncomfortable for a moment. And Yuri notices this and forces them to kiss. This goes into a bit of that uncomfortable part that I was talking about. And they're about to, but then Yuri, he lunges forward to stop them. And at that moment, Yor kind of freaks out and she's gonna go slap Loid, but since she's drunk, she kind of misses and she hits Yuri. And since she's actually Wonder Woman level strong, Yuri crashes into the wall. And he's also superhuman level durable. So he's only bleeding, and then there's a lot of violence, and it's just a fun episode that solidifies their relationship. And I'm pretty sure Yuri is gonna come back, but we'll see in the episodes to come. So I just realized that part of the plot explanation that I brought up was the beginning of episode 9. So I apologize for that. Sorry about the confusion, but let's start with episode 9, Show Off How in Love You Are. So after the kiss scenario and Yuri goes back to his, Secret Service life, Yor starts to waver in her confidence as a wife and tries to improve upon that. But because of her brother's connection to an opposing spy agency or an opposing agency to his own, Twilight begins to question Yor's involvement with his life overall. And his nature as a spy just kind of makes him question people in general. And he creates a disguise for himself and Frankie, and they interrogate Yor as fake SSS officers that are trying to capture the people that they've been kind of talking about in the series. And this leads to Yor basically declaring that her husband and brother are upstanding citizens, and that if they decide to harass her or them, she's basically going to kill them. She doesn't make it quite that blunt, but she was ready to kill them. Then after Loid realizes she must be faithful to at least the fake scenario. He pretends that there was a mistake made overall and that she wasn't actually the person they suspected, and then he moves on. And this reinvigorates the trust that he has in her. Episode 10, The Great Dodgeball Plan. I was very surprised by how much I enjoyed this episode. It's just them playing dodgeball at Anya's school. It's her and her peers, but it was so thrilling. It was, of course, like anime epic style sports, like, you know, I love it. But there's this one kid, I'm sure you know the kid that needs to show his ID every time he states, I'm a first grader. They'll be like, you look like you're in high school at least. Give me your ID. You don't even have an ID. You're in elementary school. So Anya and Damien are on the same team, and it's alleged that the winner or the MVP gets a stellar star. So everyone's really gunning for it, but this is also just a rumor. The Grandmaster didn't state this before the game started. Anya, using her telepathy, she's very successful at dodging the giants' attacks because she's predicting them right before they happen. But the highlight of the episode, at least for me, is when Damien and his little henchmen went into their formations, their freaking Team Rocket formations, and utterly failed, but with style.
Formation G, go! Right!
It was definitely stylish, and I was so here for it.
This isn't over! Ultimate Shadow Clone Attack!
This was a fun episode, and it gave us a little more insight into the school that Anya goes to, and the warning that she was heeded to by the Grandmaster that the peers can be very snobby, have their own hazing, and be their own set of obstacles aside from the scholastics. And this episode did a lot to show how prevalent that was. A fun one, probably one of the most fun so far. Episode 11, Stella. With Anya being worse than Usagi at school, practically getting zeros in all of her marks, Loid becomes a little less than hopeful that she will get the academic rating to get into the inner circle or even earn stellar stars that way. So, is it Stellar or Stella? I'm gonna say Stella. But Loid decides that they should go a different route, and that route being outstanding contributions to your community, aka community service for long periods of time. And they go to the hospital where literally Anya makes everything worse, and it comes to the point where they're asked to leave because she's making things so bad. So on their way out, a boy slips into the pool and begins drowning because he's there to do physical therapy for a leg injury, making him literally immobile in the water. And no one notices because it's such a quiet event and he can't scream. So Anya can hear his thoughts, and she hears that he's drowning, and she rushes to the pool. She knows she can't tell anyone that she's telepathic, but she's doing her best to still save this kid. And the animation, the intensity, like I really thought she was gonna make it for a second. Loid ended up really getting them out of the pool, but he wouldn't have known about it unless Anya basically led him there. So this was a very awesome way to see her get a stellar and just make a non-mystical event with a slight bit of mysticism super engaging and exciting in anime way. It was just a lot of fun seeing her use her power to save this boy's life. Episode 12, Penguin Park. This concludes part 1 for season 1, and the reason why I've been like going back and forth with saying part 1 and season 1 is because this didn't really feel like a conclusion to the arc so far. Like we didn't really get to find out anything, especially in this episode. It just felt like the next episode and that you should carry on. And I almost did, but when I did, I saw that there was a new opening. So I was like, okay, it really was the break point and it stopped here. So I thought I'd start off by saying that before we get into the plot. After basically working himself into the ground with managing the family and doing extra spy work and the overall mission that he has to save the world by keeping peace between East and West, Loid is tired to say the least. He's literally exhausted, and this leads to him neglecting his familial appearances, and rumors start to spread about him being unfaithful or just negative in general. Mostly unfaithful because the housewives were talking. Understanding the importance of keeping the social life of his family seemingly normal because they're like abducting spies and stuff and interrogating people without, I think, the legal permits of today at least. he decides that the family needs to go on an outing to prove that they are a normal family. So they decide to go to the aquarium. Now, he's given another side mission by his company, very much against his will, but he relents knowing that it's at the aquarium and that he might get some time off after this, at least from the side missions. Side note, I love Yor's outfit here, and especially the colors. I feel like she may be picking something more to her personal preference that she doesn't get to use often because she doesn't have an assassination to think about. At least that they let us know. Loid has to retrieve a device that's in a specific penguin's throat, and I'm not sure what the device is, but that's not honestly that important. But he has to get that. That's the mission. So he finds an excuse to go get some drinks to leave the crowd. Oh, and by the way, the women who are gossiping about him being unfaithful are at the aquarium, and Yor invites them to hang out as a group. Now, she does this so she can appear as a kind neighbor and a good wife, but this hurts Loid's agenda for his mission because he needs to have less attention on him to be able to get the device from the penguin. So what he does is he creates a mask for one of the workers who appeared late, and since he already was knowledgeable in the subject of feeding penguins, which was so interesting. I don't know if this is real, but they go into like the hierarchy and how you have to feed them by certain sizes and stuff, and that was just fascinating. But he knows this and is better than literally anyone that's ever worked there, and they decide to go ahead and just let him work on his own accord. He finds the penguin because that penguin is visually struggling to breathe and stuff. It's like choking. It's using the water to try to get the device out of its throat. He gets the penguin and he's ambushed by another agent where he again uses his incredible spy deductive skills to realize that that person trying to get the penguin was not an actual doctor and just fake, and ultimately gets the device and is able to free the penguin. And since this took a lot longer than he intended, he decided to go win Anya a giant penguin and said that it took him multiple times to guess, and that's why it took so long. And Anya reads his mind and is like, he's a liar, like she's been doing the whole series because he got it on the first try. This was a wonderful episode. Didn't feel like appropriate enough for a wrap up of part 1, but perhaps it's just not the end of the season, it's just part 1. So that's why I feel like it is better stated as part 1 instead of season 1, and probably up into episode 25 will be season 1, if not just the whole series, because I don't know how far the manga goes. I do plan on reading the manga after I finish the series, and I might start reacting to each episode individually on the channel depending on how this video performs. So if you would like that, definitely comment that down below so I don't just end up watching it on my own. Overall, I absolutely love this series. It is a blast from start to finish, at least for the first part. The art style is sleek and serious with a hint of cutesiness, and the whole show is gorgeously animated. It's just a visual delight. It's honestly hard to find a bad frame. Anya mispronouncing words, at least in the dub, I'm sure it's probably in the sub too. It's just so cute and so childlike, a great way to immerse you into the fact that she's a child in the story. And there's so many hilarious moments. I feel like it's more of a comedy than anything else. Like, this will have you laughing out loud at so many points. I cannot recommend it enough, especially if you need to something that feels good and is still a roller coaster of a rush. This is definitely up anyone's alley who likes anime in general. And if you enjoyed this video essay, please leave a like. It helps so much in the algorithm. Leave a comment, anything you like. Just don't give me spoilers for part 2. And let me know what you think of the video essay format, especially my regulars, because they watch my reaction content, which is what I normally do. But let me know what you think. I just really appreciate you being here. Hit the notifications bell so you never miss a future upload. My social media links will be on the screen if you want to reach out to me and request another series for me to review like this, or just to hang out with me. I try to post daily. It's fun over there. And of course, I want to say thank you to my patrons who helped make this possible. I couldn't do anything without you and your support. If you would like to be a patron for as little as $1 a month, the link is in the description box down below. You get my mainline reaction features and most of my content at least 48 hours early, uncensored, ad-free, longer, and unaltered, because YouTube usually makes me do things that I don't want to do with my videos for copyright bot reasons. So I love you. I appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching, and I will see you for the next one. Later. Thank you.